Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is at the Milwaukee Public Library. We're interviewing candidates in the 2014 elections. We're interviewing Jonathan Brostoff. He's a Democrat running in Assembly District 19. Jonathan, welcome to Wisconsin Eye.
Thank you very much, and thanks to everyone watching. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. And just this note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. Jonathan, from your website, I can tell that K-12 issues are very important to you. Let's start with a position on your website. You want to end the voucher, the school choice programs. Why?
Well, the voucher programs have been a 25-year failed experiment. The information is out, we have all the data, and unfortunately they are not outperforming their public school counterparts, and in some cases underperforming compared to their public school counterparts. The 25 years and all the money that we've spent on that program could have been invested in something like, let's say, expanding the SAGE program, where we have no more than 18 kids in any MPS classroom. I think that would have yielded much better results, and we'd be a much better off society if we spent a quarter of a century investing in that, as well as more competitive salaries for our public school teachers and providing universal K-3 and K-4 access to our Milwaukee parents.
Would you shut down the voucher program in the next budget, or would you phase it out, Jonathan?
Well, logistically speaking, I don't think it's fair to say that we could shut it down in the next budget, especially given the current iteration of the state, of the makeup of the legislative houses. But I think we need to take a serious look at what kind of bang for the buck we're getting from this program. And I don't understand what sort of 25-year failed experiment we would not only continue to fund, but actually increase. And we're looking at expanding now across the state. We're looking at getting rid of the amount of money that parents are making to be acceptable for these voucher programs. It just does not make any sense. If instead we focused on reinvesting in our public education system, and instead of demonizing our public school teachers, we paid them competitive wages in order to maintain and attract and retain talent, we would be much better off as a society.
Part of the K-12 debate is about the Common Core standards. Your position on those?
The Common Core standards are certainly an improvement upon the No Child Left Behind, and I think all the evidence is out. We can agree on that, but the accountability measures are great. It's important to be accountable, and I think that that's a very important aspect of our public education system. But again, accountability measures aren't the end-all be-all. We need to look at investing in our public schools. And I went to a high school of the arts here in Milwaukee, where I remember thinking having 32, 33 kids in a class was way too much, especially for someone who isn't the best at certain trigonometry and math classes. And I was doing a neighborhood walk the other day where I spoke with one of my neighbors who's much younger than myself, and she also went to high school of the arts. And she told me that when I told her my frustrations with it, she said, well, you know, my physics class, my senior, had 50 kids. And I said, that is definitely going in the wrong direction. So again, accountability measures are very important, but without the initial investment and without our structure being sound, none of the accountability measures are going to be helpful. We need to reinvest in our public schools, reduce class sizes, and increase access to universal K-3 and K-4 for our parents.
Question on health care. As you know, Governor Walker and the leaders of the Senate and Assembly told the federal government, we don't want to take your money to expand MA, we're just not going to do it. Wise or not so wise choice?
That is a great question. Where to begin? I spent 16 years working in homeless shelters and in the community and in various other nonprofit agencies. And there's one homeless shelter I remember working at in particular where some of the people, and I was much younger back then, but some of the people I was working with actually did not have any access to health care themselves. And these were not the participants of the shelter program, these were those running the shelter. And in fact, they had to wait till they got so sick, they went to the emergency room for their care. that is a broken system. Badger Care works. And not expanding Badger Care was not only an economically terrible decision, but morally, we ended up denying a lot of people who really needed it access to health care that has real and important implications on their day-to-day lives and on their families' lives. And as we all know, you can be walking down the street and get hit by a car, or there can be some terrible illness that befalls any one of us. And if you don't have access to insurance or access to proper health care, your life's trajectory can change in an instant, and it can ruin your life, your family's life. So it was a terrible decision on many fronts, but hopefully if I get elected, that is an area I'd like to focus on, and we can work on expanding access to health care and making sure that those who are most vulnerable in our community get the care that they need and deserve. And we morally, as a society, have decided that if you are sick enough and you go to the emergency room, they have to treat you. So why not take that logic a step further and say we're just going to have smart preventative access to everyone before it gets that bad? It will save us money, it will save us our health, and it will be morally the correct decision to make.
Transportation funding. The Zoo Freeway potentially cost $1.7 billion. Hone Bridge needs repairs. Yet there's a projected $650 million shortfall in the next Department of Transportation budget.
Yes.
Do we delay some of these projects? Do we raise taxes? Or how do we fill that shortfall?
Well, I think the two projects that you mentioned are very important. Unfortunately, there are other projects that have been injected into the state highway expansion part of our transit budget that are not as needed. And we have to take a serious and responsible look at exactly how much dollars are going into highways, and if the areas have the traffic and have the numbers that justify that sort of expansion. If it were up to me, I would say we need to reevaluate our whole system and look at reinvesting in our public education, public transit system, which ties into our public education system and other parts of our society in Milwaukee, because people need to get to jobs. There's a lot of great light manufacturing work out in Waukesha, and we have a lot of great workers here in Milwaukee. And if I get elected, one of the things I'll be working on immediately is a 7-county regional transit authority, instead of sectioning our transit systems off county by county, because that's not how the economy operates, that's not how we operate, and it doesn't make sense for our community to continue going down that path when they need our workers and we need their jobs. I also think we need to work on getting a dedicated funding source for our transportation system. Chris Larson and I worked on a referendum ballot initiative some years back that actually passed but was not implemented to develop such a dedicated funding source, also including our parks and EMS services. And it was true in 2008, it's even more true now. We need to have smarter budgeting processes, and we need to do it in an appropriate manner so that we can prevent some of these shortfalls that are coming upon us. But at the end of the day, we just need to reevaluate our emphasis on public transit versus highway expansion.
I want to ask you about an issue that an idea you put forth on your website I find pretty interesting. Micro-lending, how would that work? Who would administer it? What would be the amount of that could be loaned to some of these startup businesses?
Well, actually the Mayor Barrett has taken on an interesting perspective on this initiative, and there's been a few other cities that have looked at these sorts of programs, but I don't have a perfect answer for all the businesses in Wisconsin. We'd have to look community by community, and we'd have to look at exactly what the studies show, what the best practices are across the country, and implement a system that's right for Wisconsin, scale to our economy and scale to our cost of living and the needs that we have here. But my mom has been a small business owner for 31 years. Entrepreneurial spirit runs deep in my family, and it's also a very important part of Milwaukee's economy. I'm very honored to have the support of Ian Abston and Jeremy Fugette from Milwaukee, and they've done a great job in encouraging young professional leaders to come to Milwaukee and to grow their businesses here. Places like Vets Transfer, I just toured the incubator for the Wisconsin Water Council over on the lake, and we have a lot of great things going on in our community now. We just need to make sure that we're focusing on encouraging those who would like to expand their businesses, would like to grow jobs in our community, instead of rerouting those dollars through, well, it's been going through WEDC, the Wisconsin Economic Development Council, and that has proven to lose a lot of money. Somehow it's gone unaccounted for. We don't know where those millions of dollars have went. But those same dollars could actually go towards real economic development. And that economic development should be happening right here in Milwaukee and right here in the 19th District. Microloans would be a great expression of that, but it's not the end, it's just the start.
You've also done a great deal of research into the cost of the criminal justice system and enforcing laws dealing with marijuana. Has that led to your position that we ought to make the recreational use legal and medical marijuana should be legalized? Can you talk about your positions on those?
Absolutely. We, unfortunately, are becoming famous. And usually it's good to be famous. There's lots of people that make a lot of money off of being famous. There's lots of rock stars out there that are famous. The unfortunate thing is we're famous for our prison industrial complex, and specifically for locking up an incredible amount of, we have an incredible amount of racial disparity in our criminal justice system. And that's a problem morally, and that's a problem in our community economically as well. We spend nearly $40,000 a year annually to lock people up. The research that I've done, as well as the research that many others have done, both in Milwaukee and across the country, have shown that nonviolent drug offenses, which oftentimes are marijuana related, it's not helpful to make that illegal, and it's not helpful for our society, and it's not helpful for our country. In fact, when you lock someone up who's had, and the difference between 4 and 5 grams, that could be one, it's like a sugar packet. The difference for locking someone up for that and putting them with very dangerous, very violent people, if they're coming out of that system, are they likely to be harder or softer? Are they more likely to be a responsible, tax-paying citizen who's going to vote, be civically engaged, or are they more likely to go back into that system? The research that I've done suggests that we need to end this terrible practice immediately of locking people up for nonviolent drug offenses. And I think there are a lot of people who are on board with that. I think it's the common will across the country, and it would also save us a significant amount of money. But the important part is the moral damage it's done to our community, and the moral damage that it inflicts every single day that we continue that practice. And working in homeless shelters and working with some of our most vulnerable society members for 16 years, I've seen it time and time and time again, and the ability for one simple mistake or 2 simple mistakes to rip a family apart.
2 candidates for Attorney General say that first offense drunken driving should be a crime. Do you have a position on that, sir?
Yes, I don't think it should be.
Okay. Any other major issues in your campaign that I haven't had a chance to ask on about?
Well, if you'll check out my website, votebrostoff.com, you'll see we have 10 policy papers on there on various issues. I'm a bit of a policy wonk. It's what I've done for the last 8 years, but I also love research and reading, so I'd encourage any people watching this, if they have ideas, to send them my way. My information is on the website, votebrostoff.com. But one of the things I'd like to focus on specifically that we haven't touched base on yet is we've been put in a very false dichotomy. We've been put into a place where people say, to grow the economy, we have to destroy the environment. The Pinocchio mine is the tip of the spear currently, but there are a lot of other implications towards this. And we have a pristine lakefront. We've done a very good job of maintaining that. We have some incredible natural resources all across the state, as well as in the 19th District. And the reality of the situation is quite the opposite. Instead of fighting our environment to create jobs, we need to work with our environment. We need to be investing in sustainable green jobs to grow our economy. And Wisconsin has a very long, very strong tradition of environmental security as well as manufacturing. We need to marry those two and start reinvesting in our manufacturing base.
There's one other question I meant to ask you on a
Yes,
different
sir.
subject. The minimum wage is being debated in Washington and Madison. Your position on that?
We should increase it.
Do you like the 10-10 or a different number?
Well, I know that we've had a lot of legislators advocate the 10-10, and I've heard a lot of community members speak towards $15 an hour. I have yet to fully research it, and I have to say that we should put it up through we have a great research staff at the state. We should vet it fully. It might be higher than $15, it might be lower. I like $15 more than $10 on first glance, but I think we need to look into it and find out exactly what the perfect number is. I wouldn't want an arbitrary number that could have been better, but it should be in line with our production growth, and it should be in line with what's going to feed our families and make sure that we're no longer subsidizing these huge corporations for their healthcare costs. You know, if you go up to some of these large corporations, they'll have, you know, they have the Badger Care ready to sign up for. They're ready to sign you right up because we're subsidizing their health care. They're not willing to pay these costs. We, as taxpayers, as citizens, as community members, have to foot this burden because they're not willing to pay a livable wage, and that is not something that we should continue. So I'm not sure exactly what the number is. It might be higher than 15, it might be lower, but I'm closer to that than 10-10.
Okay, and then finally, if you choose to, I want to give you a chance to highlight any differences between you and your primary opponent.
Sure. Well, I have to say I have a lot of respect for my opponents. This is a very hard thing to run for office, and they're all great people. That being said, there's a few key differences between us. First and foremost, the chairwoman has decided to fully fund and help out the sheriff of Milwaukee County, Sheriff Clark's budget, and has supported him in her role as chairwoman of the county board. This is a policy decision that I think is unwise, and to his credit, the county executive actually took a very close eye to this budget and did a great job of bringing it back into line with what it should be instead of the inflated budget that we have now. That was not appropriate. We should know the track record he's had after so many years and budget accordingly. The other important difference there was taking away Milwaukee Police Department's ability to patrol our parks and leaving that in the hands of the sheriff. That would have saved us money, would have made us more secure, and under her leadership that did not go through, and that fight continued, and she won it, but it was to the cost of our citizens. The other major differences, I would say, are, first of all, I'm the only one who's had 16 years of experience working directly in our communities with our most vulnerable citizens. I'm the only one who's had that much time to see exactly how policies are impacting our community directly. I'm the only one who's had experience legislatively at the city, county, state, and federal level. And I'm the only one who has worked to build bridges across our community, and thankfully, and I'm very honored to have built up the support of people like Val Phillips, people like Nikia Harris, Danny Reamer, Fred Kessler, and a myriad of others. Again, you can check out my website, votebrostoff.com, for that. But that sort of bridge building and bring communities together is important for the effective progressive leadership I hope to bring to Madison. And if I get elected, I will continue to bring that toolbox there and work on delivering. I've worked in the community for my entire adult life. I get it. I care. And if I get elected, I will deliver.
Very good. Thank you. Jonathan Brostoff is a Democratic candidate in the 19th Assembly District. The primary is August 12th. Jonathan, thanks for talking to Wisconsin
Thank you so much. And thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you.